Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Oh! You know, Rick, you know what happens tomorrow?
What happens?
A training camp starts.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's the Steelers and the Titans play in the Hall of Fame game.
Does it really start tomorrow?
I think the Steelers and Titans play in the Hall of Fame game. Which
tomorrow?
No. That's August 5th.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, you gotta get you sweating.
I was gonna say, bro.
So anyway, the people who play in the Hall of Fame game for the preseason, the first preseason game, which is August 5th, they can start training camp a week earlier because their game is a week earlier. And then the Bucs can start later this week because they play the first game of the regular season. So it's the Bucs and one other team who they're playing. Can't remember who it is. But anyway, training camps, some of them, at least 4 of them are starting this week. And then next week on the 28th, everybody gets a good old start on training camp. So this is going to be exciting.
It is.
We're starting to get into the real nitty-gritty of the fantasy football season. What is this? Draft season, I should say.
Right.
But anyway, welcome to Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me, as always. I pointed at the screen, but he's over here somewhere. What's
I don't even know where I am. What's up, bro?
Nothing much. I'm doing stellar. I'm just
Stellar?
happy.
That's a new one.
I'm pretty friggin' happy about like football. I just kind of want to go watch Mac Jones live at training camp for the Patriots.
Or you should.
I'm gonna go like multiple days because I got a sickness.
Right.
And I'll watch like literally. It's been like dead for like. Bro, I've been watching Kendrick Bourne vlogs. That's how like.
That's how you know.
That's how bad it's been. Like I'm trying to like make myself like the 2 terrible wide receivers we found.
Hey, Kendrick Bourne I like. I just don't think he's like. You know, he's a good third, fourth guy.
Apparently, I think he's trying to buy a house. He bought a house in like Seattle, Oregon. I don't really know why he did that.
Recently?
Yeah, recently.
That's interesting.
He was showing off his house on his vlog. He was hanging out with Debo Samuel.
Oh, okay.
He was showing off his whole house, and then he goes into a room, like a dark room, and all of a sudden he's like, some guy's playing like 2K, and he goes, Debo. Spins around his chair. It's Debo Samuel playing 2K, and then he looks at the camera. And he's like, "Debo's obsessed with 2K." And I'm like,
"That's funny."
Yeah, I was like, okay, but I thought it was in New England, so I'm like, "What's Debo doing in freaking New England? No one comes here."
Yeah,
unless
that would be lit though. Debo to the Pats, confirmed.
All day. But anyway, yes, welcome to Fantasy Fantasy Football Podcast. Today we got hard draft day decisions. It should be an interesting episode. This is also another one of my favorite episodes to do because we're able to sit down and break down, based on ADP right now, some decisions that you might have to make on draft day that are going to be extenuatingly hard.
Yeah.
Is that a word? I don't know.
I think so.
But they're going to be decisions that make or break possibly your fantasy season. So we're going to try to go through all of them and have a conversation about them. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Champs, on Instagram at the Fantasy Champions, Facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. Like us over there. And then on TikTok, at the FF Champs, our brand new TikTok. Go over there. And then if you're watching on, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platform, leave a review, share this podcast with your friends, keep smashing it over there because we're killing it, growing in numbers. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys listened this week, I think.
Okay.
Some people listened.
They get better.
And we got like a couple comments last week. So subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and like and comment down below any questions you have. I don't want your opinions. I want your questions.
You can drop your opinions, bro.
Yeah,
Come on, don't hate.
That's true. I'm sorry. You can drop your opinions. Like I'm not gonna argue with you. If you have your own opinion, like why are you watching YouTube videos? Start your own channel if you have your own opinion.
No. Hey, wait a minute. Drop your own opinion so we can comment on it and either agree or disagree. Maybe they want to hear us agree or disagree and have a conversation.
Roast them for having a terrible day.
Yeah, just be like, you suck.
You are terrible at fantasy football.
Hey, I think I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to have a great... You suck!
Me in the comments. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to have a great year. No! Slap.
Idiot.
You fool.
Loser.
What's wrong with you? Everyone gets so triggered with fantasy football, and I'm like, wow. All right.
I know, we're literally talking about fantasy football. Like, let's relax.
Yeah. Unless you're in like $1,000 buy-in.
That's true. Like you're gambling your whole life savings. I mean, I could understand if you were a little upset or a little emotional.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's jump into our hard draft day decisions. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting program. We got 5 draft day decisions that you might have to make as you go through your drafts. Excuse me. So let's start off with the very first one that we got on this list. Very interesting, very intriguing. 2 wide receivers from the Dallas Cowboys, Amari Cooper with an ADP of 42 and CeeDee Lamb with an ADP of 44. If you're sitting on the board, Rick, and you got to choose between one of these guys, who you taking?
This is so hard for me. And I think I'm going to go back and forth on this throughout the summer. This is the hardest one of all the 5 of these for me because I had like a definitive guy in me. This one I had to stop and really think.
Yeah.
I think we're going to disagree on this one. I'm going to go Amari Cooper. I think based on their ADP, it's virtually the exact same. Earlier this summer, CeeDee Lamb had about a full round on Amari Cooper, and I felt a lot better about that. But now, with pretty much the exact same ADP, I'm going to say Amari Cooper because last season when they played together, Amari Cooper was just slightly better. CeeDee Lamb had more in those 5 games based out with Dak. CeeDee Lamb was projected to get more touchdowns. He was on pace for more touchdowns.
Yeah.
But Amari Cooper was on pace for 125 receptions with Dak Prescott. Well, CeeDee Lamb was on pace for about 93. So good. CeeDee Lamb was still very good with Dak, but Amari Cooper was just better. And you could make the argument CeeDee Lamb, those were his first 5 games of his career. So he's only going to get better, which he will. And I agree with that. But I think it's going to be close. It's going to be very even between these guys. But I think just for year number 2 of CeeDee Lamb's career, I think Amari Cooper is just going to be slightly better with slightly more production. If you were asking me in Dynasty, though, I would 100% take CeeDee Lamb.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in Dynasty, I don't think it's even a question. I don't know what the ADPs are on startup drafts for them, so I'm not even going to ask, but that's probably
CeeDee Lamb's definitely higher for like a full 2 rounds.
Now, for me, I got to say, I'm actually with you on the closeness of this. No, I don't know yet.
You haven't made your decision yet?
I'll make it right now. No. So I want to preface what I'm about to say with, you're either thinking in 2 streams of thought, and I think draft strategy and what you already have on your fantasy team kind of matter in the decision that you're about to make, right? Because if you took 2 wide receivers and then you got a stud you took 2 running backs, you got a stud of a wide receiver already. Like, say you drafted a wide receiver in the 1st or 2nd round, right? You got a guy that you know is going to be top 5, like a Stephen Diggs or somebody like that, right? Or a Hopkins. You get a guy that you know is going to be either top 5, top 6, top 7, somewhere in that vicinity. I would be more willing to take a risk on CeeDee Lamb, knowing that there's a good shot that he could see a higher ceiling. Like Rick said, what did you say it was in 5 games that he started?
In the 5 games that Dak started, Amari Cooper just had more receptions. I think he had more yards, and then CeeDee Lamb did have more touchdowns, but he only had 2. So
yeah, so you see CeeDee's numbers with Dak, but you also see like through those 5 games, like even just the first 4 games, taking the 5th game out against the Giants, like he really wasn't averaging a large target share. Like he was still getting like 7 to 9 targets per game, which is 120 on the season, which is great.
Right.
And that's a spectacular season, but I think Amari was in the vicinity of 150 to 160 targets.
Yeah.
So anyway, for me, CeeDee Lamb is a player that has an extremely high ceiling, where if you draft him and he gets that 150 target workload that Amari got last year, for example, and he just overtakes Amari Cooper because he's a better wide receiver, right? And he gets 150 targets, he could easily finish as a top 5 wide receiver, and you get this massive ceiling with CeeDee Lamb. Whereas with Amari Cooper, I think there's a shot that he finishes in the top 5 just because Dak is his quarterback. If he gets 150 targets, like obviously there's a chance that happens, but I don't think his ceiling is as higher. But I do think his floor is wicked high. Like he's going to be a wide receiver 1. It might be 10, 11, 12, but he's going to be a wide receiver 1. So for me, the way I look at it is if you drafted 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds of your draft or 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds of your draft and you need a wide receiver and you don't have one yet, then I feel like you have to take the floor play in Amari Cooper. But if you already have a really solid wide receiver and you're going for your second guy and your decision is between Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, I would honestly take CeeDee Lamb in that circumstance. Yeah. So for me, I guess it slices both ways because I honestly think I'm going to rank these guys in one spot around each other.
Yeah, I am too. But bro, you gotta pick one guy. You're on the clock.
I have to pick. I gotta pick one guy.
You got to pick one guy for this year.
I'll take Cooper for this year.
Okay. All right.
So we didn't disagree, but yeah. But like I said, I think for me, it's all about like what the circumstances you're in.
Right. I know. I agree.
But I think for me, like I generally like the floor plays. Like even if you, especially at the wide receiver position, because if CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper end up both being wide receiver 2, somewhere between 13 and 14, right? We talked about the difference between the 13th and the 14th guy being no different than the guy at wide receiver 20. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like, to me, I really think you're, I might change my mind.
Oh. You can't be doing this, bro. You got to have one guy. You got to pick one guy.
This is a problem. I'll go with Amari Cooper for now, and I'll let you know on the odds. Because I do think CeeDee Lamb's going to have a breakout.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think early, and I've always have said this, but usually in the earlier rounds, I do like the floor play, and then I take more of the risks the later the draft goes. So I think at this point, at the 4th round, I think I would rather have the floor of Amari Cooper. But I don't blame you for taking CeeDee Lamb, especially if like you said, you had like a DeAndre Hopkins or a Tyreek Hill or something like that, where you have a definitive guy, and then you throw CeeDee Lamb in there and hope for a boom type season. Like I understand that. But I would take Amari Cooper.
Okay. Fair enough.
This next one, we probably
number 2.
might disagree.
Say that again?
We might disagree on this one.
I don't know. I'm interested to see what you say, but number 2 on this list is DeAndre Swift at ADP 26 or J.K. Dobbins at ADP 27.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, this one, it is still close. Like all these are going to be close for me. I think both these guys are going to finish in similar spots. But for me, with their ADPs being again virtually the exact same, 26 and 27 respectively, I would take DeAndre Swift simply for the pass catching.
Okay.
I think the Lions' offensive line has also gotten better this season. The Penei Sewell pick I loved for DeAndre Swift. I think they're going to rely heavy on the run. Yes, Jamal Williams is there, but I'm not really worried about that. He's pretty much just going to do what Kerryon Johnson did, and maybe do a little bit more, but I think they'll also run the ball more. So I think DeAndre Swift, the passing is what really puts him over the edge with J.K. Dobbins, and I like Dobbins a lot. I think he's going to have a great season running the ball more than some people think. I know that there's a lot of people down on Dobbins that I've seen on Twitter at least. It's just like he's going to be like Derrick Henry in the sense that he's not going to get the receiving work at all. And
not in the sense I don't think he's going to be an absolute monster.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to get like 1,500 yards like Derrick Henry. I think Swift is the guy, but they are close. I think Dobbins will be slightly better on the ground, and Swift will be better in the air, and that's going to be the difference where Swift just outplays him in the air, and it's close enough on the ground where that is the difference between the two players.
Yeah.
I think I have a 5-point projection difference between these guys, so it's close.
So it's interesting for me because I'm not really excited about Dobbins like I was.
Yeah, I mean, I like in Dynasty, for example, you have J.K. Dobbins as like your RB2. That's great.
Oh yeah,
that's fantastic.
Definitely.
But Yeah, I'm not as excited either.
So, but like, if you asked me like, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, I would have been like very excited about J.K. Dobbins. As we get closer to the season, I don't really care what the hype says about it, or them thinking that he's going to get more pass catching work. It just doesn't happen in the Ravens offense. It really doesn't, especially with Lamar Jackson.
Even if they throw the ball more this year, do you think that's going to go to like Rashad Bateman?
It'll go to Bateman.
Right.
Like their closest top running back when it came to pass catching in I'm going to say 2019 because I'm looking at those stats right now was Mark Ingram with 29 targets.
Receptions or targets?
He caught 26 of them. So the reason why I'm looking at 2019 stats though is because I think the closest J.K. Dobbins is going to get to an RB1 season is going to mimic what Mark Ingram did in 2019. I think that's I think he's a better running back and he might be better, like, or at this point in his career, he's a better running back. But I think that we're not going to see him excel any more than what Mark Ingram did that year.
There's a ceiling with him.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a ceiling. Now, when I say that, people are going to be like, oh, well, he's talented. He might get better than that. Well, to me, 5 yards per carry in 2019 from Mark Ingram and 10 touchdowns is highly efficient.
That's
very, very good. He did that on 202 carries. I looked in the past couple years, they haven't given a running back more than like 220. I don't think that J.K. Dobbins is going to come in and get 320 carries in this offense. I really don't.
No.
I think Gus Bus is going to get 100 to 125 to 150.
I mean,
say it again.
Lamar's going to get his carries.
Oh yeah,
too.
definitely. So, but it's like you're going to see 200 something carries for J.K. Dobbins. I think he's going to be just as efficient. But the question to me comes down to, can J.K. Dobbins get the touchdown share that Mark Ingram did in that season where he was an RB1? He had 10 total touchdowns in that season. Is J.K. Dobbins going to get 10 total touchdowns in 2021?
He might. He might. I don't know.
Because Lamar's over here getting 7. And I think last year he had 8.
Even if Dobbins gets 10, like, is he going to be a top 5 running back?
No.
And that's a ceiling.
Right.
Much.
And so J.K. Dobbins last year, though, he averaged 6 yards per carry, and that's pretty good.
This is kind of similar to the CeeDee Lamb Cup aspect to me as well. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, because I think Dobbins does have the slightly higher floor and Swift has a slightly higher ceiling. The difference is, though, that I think Swift's floor is also pretty high. Dobbins just has a slightly higher one. So it kind of goes against what I was saying earlier, where I usually take the guys with the higher floor.
Yeah.
But in a situation like this where their floors are pretty similar, but I think Swift just does have the higher ceiling, I'll take Swift.
Right. So, but I mean, like, I just, in my mind, I think Dobbins is going to he might get 220 carries. And if he gets 5 yards per carry, I think he's going to get over 1,000 yards. And he might get a couple of, a couple of nice receptions through the air.
Right.
And get somewhere. He had 9 touchdowns last year, J.K. Dobbins. So, he might get 10 to 11, 12 touchdowns in 2021. But, like, to me, when I look at Dobbins, I just think that the ceiling is where Mark Ingram was. What was 2019? He was like the RB8.
Yes, it was a low end RB1.
So I think Dobbins is going to be in that kind of area. Now you look at DeAndre Swift. There's a lot of concerns surrounding Swift. Considering they brought in Jamal Williams and said that he was this 1-2 punch with some other running back whose name escapes me, and then that Swift was going to be pass catching in third down or whatever. I don't know. There's all kinds of nonsense coming out of the Lions situation, and it goes with what their system is, like bringing in Jamal Williams, bringing in bruising running backs, kind of goes with who they are, which is biting kneecaps off, I guess. Like that's he wants a gritty offense, and so is DeAndre Swift a gritty running back? No, he's a pass catching, elusive running back. He's not going to run people over. So I'm not saying that is the reason why DeAndre Swift's not going to maybe have a great season. I think that the players they brought in are a slightly more concerning than people are letting on. And so I think when you look at these two running backs, like they're the bottom tier, I guess, of the running back position at this point. Like you start looking at some guys come at this point when you're looking at these running backs, like you're at this point where like if you don't draft one here, you're gonna be toast.
You gotta get one of these guys.
So to me, the way that I look at this is similar to what you were saying. It's the floor to ceiling argument, especially with the running back position. And when you're here, I think if you're getting like you're drafting your, most likely your second running back or possibly your third running back on your team.
Or first, depending on what you did.
Or first, depending on your strategy. Oh, good Lord. I think I would take the risk on Swift, despite what I just said, because I think that if they do give him a full workload and he gets pass catching work, I think in half PPR and PPR leagues, he becomes like a top 5 elite, not top 5 running back this year, but he can become an elite running back that becomes very valuable for your fantasy team. Whereas J.K. Dobbins has this floor of like RB8, and can he hit it this year? And does he have a higher percentage of hitting that? Maybe. But if they don't give him a full workload and they only give him 200 carries, he's going to have to get 5 yards a carry and 10 touchdowns just to even get into that discussion, which is kind of challenging at the running back position. So I would take Swift at pick 26 if you're sitting there and you have Swift and J.K. Dobbins on the board.
All right, so we agree with the first two. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, I don't like that. Number 3 on our list, Josh Allen or Kyler Murray. I think we're going to agree on this one, so we won't spend too much time on it. But I feel like it's going to be one of those decisions for people maybe who are not in fantasy football all year round, who are going to have a little bit of a tougher time understanding like why, because they're going to love Josh Allen and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, Josh Allen just came off a top 2-3 season. And
he was the QB1, wasn't he?
Yeah, was he a QB1?
I think he was
a QB1 and he was fantastic in the Bills. Everyone loves Bills Mafia and just all this stuff. And they're going to question Kyler. And I would say, for me personally, at ADP 44, Kyler Murray is a better value, and I think he's going to score not way more. I'll be safe with my words. I think he's going to score more fantasy points than Josh Allen. And I think it's just because he has the rushing capabilities, and what's surprising about him is that he can throw, unlike Lamar. So his ceiling is always going to be high. And so for me, Kyler is definitely the guy here. It's not even a question. Don't sit there on the board looking at Josh Allen and Kyler Murray and being like, oh my God, should I take Josh Allen? Like, no, take Kyler Murray. Yeah. Even though in the last mock draft, I screwed myself because I didn't see him on the board.
Yeah, and I swung in there and took him. So I was very happy about that. But I like Josh Allen still. I will say he finishes the QB1, like you said. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, look, he's the QB1. And I get to take him as the second quarterback off the board. We've talked historically before, and you made these arguments against Mahomes in the past, and they ended up being true. But just like historically speaking, it is extremely rare for a quarterback to finish as the QB1 back-to-back seasons.
Extremely difficult.
And that doesn't mean Josh Allen's going to be bad, because I think he did kind of have a breakthrough last year in a breakout season. And he's established himself as a good quarterback, and Stephon Diggs is still there. He's going to put up numbers. But I think Kyler, honestly, when they were at their peaks last year, was the better fantasy quarterback. Through those first 10 weeks before Kyler, I think he had, if you remember when he played in New England, he was battling an injury during that game. I think the Patriots ended up winning that game, but it was like all the broadcast was talking about was Kyler Murray like fighting through that injury. It was a leg injury, I believe. Before that game against New England, Kyler Murray had 271 fantasy points compared to Josh Allen's 248, and he had a game in hand on Josh Allen. So he was the QB1, averaging 30 points a game, and Josh Allen was the QB2, averaging 24 points per game. So Kyler Murray was significantly better than Josh Allen last year when they were at their peaks. And then Josh Allen ended up taking over because Murray struggled at the end of the season. But he still finished as the QB2. If I had to choose one of these guys, I would take Kyler for this year. I also think the Bills did lose John Brown. I don't think it's a huge blow to the offense, but I couldn't really tell you that the offense got better. Well, the Cardinals added Rondale Moore, who I don't think will have major production in year one, but he might be a good decoy and get the occasional big play. And they also added AJ Green, who I think is pretty much washed, but again, decoy and will add a few big plays, and he's just like a threat on the outside. So I do think the Cardinals offense has a lot of weapons. It's better this year. I'll take Kyler Murray.
Okay. We only got one more to talk about. I threw the fifth one in there just for fun, but we'll leave that off. And we'll just talk about this fourth guy at the tight end position, or these fourth guys, really quickly. Dallas Goedert or Noah Fant. Goddard's ADP is 74. Noah Fant's ADP is at 77. I feel like this one's pretty tough.
It is,
because I like Dallas Goedert, but we just don't know what Jalen Hurts is gonna like pull out this year. Does he end up being like this elite quarterback that everyone loves, and Dallas Goedert gets a ton of pass catching work and he ends up being this great tight end like we thought he was going to be, or does he bust out because Jalen Hurts just isn't good? Or do we go with a safer selection like Noah Fant, who has actually been a tight end one and been really good, even without the bad quarterback play? So it's like, and I feel like for me, unless Denver gets another quarterback, Fant is kind of going to be capped over there. Whereas for Dallas Goedert, he's still got a really high ceiling. Like he's got Zach Ertz top 3 ceiling, whereas Noah Fant could finish 5 or 6 and give you really good performances over the course of the season, but not end up really doing more than that. Whereas Goddard could legitimately finish top 4 if he ends up getting the work. So it's really another ceiling floor argument that you have here. And if you're drafting a tight end this high, I would really, to me personally, I maybe would go with the floor and go with Noah Fant.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I own both of these guys in in our Fantasy Champions Dynasty League, and I don't like either for this year, to be honest. I do still like him Dynasty because I think Fant is a good young talented tight end. I think Goedert is underrated, and he's only 26, I want to say. So when Zach Ertz leaves, because he's inevitably going to leave, it could open things up for Goedert. So I still like both guys, but for redraft, I'm like, for this year, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's tough. I think Noah Fant, as you said, is capped by that quarterback play. I think if Drew Lock is there, we're going to pretty much see the same season, maybe a slight upgrade. Teddy Bridgewater's there. We know Teddy Bridgewater's not throwing 30 touchdowns and 5,000 yards.
No.
He's probably going to throw 20 with 3,000 or something like that. So there's not a lot to go around with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant. It's tough, man. And I think Goedert wasn't great either when Jalen Hurts took over. He was okay. He was on pace for 6 targets a game, which would be 96 targets, 4 catches, 4 catches, which turns out to be 64 in a full season, and 744 yards, 0 touchdowns. So I don't know, man. I think I would take the flyer on Noah Fant just for a ceiling.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And then quickly on the last one here.
Okay.
Just quickly, I don't want any information. Nick Chubb, ADP 8, or Jonathan Taylor, ADP 7.
I'll take Nick Chubb.
I think I'm gonna take Nick Chubb too. I almost said Jonathan Taylor. I almost got excited and said Jonathan Taylor. There you have it. Hard draft day decisions in the books. Check this episode out before you draft. You'll enjoy it. We got a mock draft Thursday. Talk to you then, my friends.
See you guys later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.